In about 5-10 minutes, but Donna's going to talk to us today about memetics. Now, you've actually given 2 lectures to us on the subject. The first was on memetics as a general topic.
Right.
And then last Sunday's lecture, you talked about Christianity as a meme. So I thought what we'd do is first, just for the benefit of viewers at home who don't know, what is a meme? And then how does understanding what a meme is help us to understand ideas like Christianity? Let's just start with that.
Those are excellent questions. And It'll take me a little while to cover both of those, I think.
Oh, well, that's fine.
These ideas come out of evolutionary biology. This idea of genes. We have genes are sort of the mechanism by which we have evolution occurring. Right? We have this notion of natural selection and mutation leading to diversity, and then some of these offshoots have a better chance of survival than others, and they're competing for resources and that sort of thing. And this is the notion of universal Darwinism in a sense that we have some sorts of things that are replicating, and that we have some sort of variation in the various instances of it over time, and over time we have an increase in complexity due to competition and this diversity going on. So the idea of universal Darwinism is sort of taking the ideas of evolution out of evolutionary biology and seeing what else they apply to. And so this whole idea of memetics is applying these ideas to culture. And so effectively memes are elements of culture, or elements of imitation, if you will. And we have this notion of a meme sort of living in our minds and having some sort of integrity. It's existing over time, and we can share them through teaching or through things like books and TV or movies, that sort of thing. And they have sort of a lifetime, and they compete for our attention and for our different spots in our head for space, if you will. Right.
So would it be accurate to say then that a meme is any really, really good idea that catches on? Is that a meme, or?
Well, actually, all ideas are. All ideas are. All of our culture is meme based. It's just really sort of a way of looking at what's there already.
See, because that was my next question, was that if every idea can be thought of as a meme, how does the concept of memes help us understand what ideas are any more than just thinking of them as ideas would help us understand what ideas are? Well, and good ideas versus bad ideas, ones that catch on versus ones that don't.
Right, right. So one of the things that helps, this perspective helps you with is you get to maybe look at memes that are very, very successful, and then you can sort of reverse engineer why they're successful or what's going on with that. As Christianity is an example of a very successful meme, or actually a complex of memes that work together, you see it as very, very successful. Although, as sort of rational folks, we sort of scratch our heads and say, how is it so successful given that it doesn't explain the world, that we see? The universe was not created in 6 days. Look at all these contradictions in the Bible, and so on and so on. And so you can, from a memetic perspective, you can take a look at Christianity, and you can explain why it is the way it is, and you can explain these contradictions.
So you can explain why it has become a successful idea, even though there are parts of it that can be demonstrated to be either untrue or inaccurate.
Right.
Yeah. So why people embrace the idea in spite of those things.
Right.
Okay. And why such things as disconfirming evidence are thought by believers to be just, that's irrelevant, who cares?
Right.
I have faith, etc., etc.
Right.
Okay.
So, as atheists, we often, run into roadblocks as far as debating and such, because, we're using reason, and the meme is actually, appealing to people at levels other than reason.
Yeah.
There's emotional appeal. There's things like the survival instinct that the Christianity meme plugs into that we can't even argue against, right? Because reason's not involved, and it's basically our inbred survival instincts that are being played with here.
Yeah, that brings up the letter that I just talked about that we got last week from the young woman who's an atheist, who sent us a letter criticizing us, one of the points that she made was, you guys are just preaching to the choir, and we as atheists, we try to use reason and logic to counter these arguments, but to Christians, they don't care about those kinds of things, and you can't make the point anyway. And the implication was, so then why even bother when you're butting your head against a wall? And I made several arguments as to why you have to bother, but perhaps you can then just. But let me. I didn't want to put you on a digression.
These are good points.
Digressionary path, but.
Right.
When a meme hits a certain level of success in a culture, like as Christianity has done and as some of the other major religions have done, is it valid to say, gee, there's no point in even trying to challenge it anymore, let's get on with our lives and let's just accept it even though we know bits of it to be wrong? I don't think that's what you should do. I think that regardless, I think that what matters first and foremost is what can be arrived at through logic and reason. And so, and if a bad belief happens to be popular, that doesn't make it immune from criticism. That's my point of view. But do you think, but just from a pure standpoint of understanding what a meme is and how thoroughly entrenched it gets woven into the fabric of the culture, is that still just butting your head against the wall? Is it ever anything but an exercise in futility?
I think that the perspective gives you some very good tools for combating it.
So it would then even make combating it easier as opposed to harder in some ways. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right,
absolutely.
Okay.
Because you it's know thy enemy. If you really know how it works, then you can control it to a certain extent, or leverage what's going on.
Right.
It would seem that again, going back to actual biology and living creatures and stuff like that, there may be parts of nature that you don't like. We don't like bugs, but we can't just yank them out, of the entire ecosystem and expect things to just continue on happily.
But if one crawls into your house, you can step on it.
Yes, you can do that one.
Yeah.
But if you yank all insects out of the ecosystem, it collapses.
Yeah.
If we take this, set of memes, Christianity, and just yank them out of our society, you have a lot of holes there, and it's not going to survive as well as it could. You need something to plug up the holes.
Sure.
In the system.
No, that's a good point. So then, to say then, okay, so then the first point would be that as biological organisms, as natural selection controls the development of biological organisms by, those that have the most favorable survival characteristics will tend to go on and reproduce to the next generation more so than the ones that don't. Memetics, the study of memetics says cultures and the ideas that influence cultures work in exactly the same ways.
That's right.
There are those that have survival capacity that they are more likely to get spread than other ideas.
Right.
And whether or not the idea is perfectly true isn't necessarily what guarantees that survival.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Truthfulness is just for one way we value ideas and things.
Okay.
If I know how to build a bridge, for example, that's a very useful thing. I'm gonna remember that. I'm going to promote that, and that is valuable in and of itself. But even if Christianity doesn't provide a complete and accurate picture of the world, it does have value there. People do have this sense. So yes, it will continue on regardless of its factuality.
Okay. So explain some ways, like specifically in which Christianity functions as a meme and how it manages to protect itself from, shield itself from critical evaluation, and is anything that would sort of serve to damage its influence.
Okay. Well, if you take a look at memes and what makes them successful, you see a number of traits. You see things like integrity maintenance is a very important problem for meme, because when things are in our minds, we can combine them with other things. We can tear them apart. We can, take a few notes out of a Rachmaninoff piece and turn it into a Barry Manilow piece, right? So it doesn't, so a meme holding together is one of the big problems, and a memes facilitate their own sort of integrity maintenance through things like a canonical representation. Like in the case of Christianity, we have the scripture as a digital encoding, if you will. We have things like repetition in church services, creating integrity maintenance, because and this notion that competing religions are false, So those are some of the mechanisms by which Christianity maintains its integrity.
Okay.
Another important thing is the meme needs to find a way to be transmitted to new hosts, potential infectees, if you will, of the meme. We see this, successful memes do this by attacking or going after a captive audience or a very attentive audience. Maybe they're attentive because they know that what's coming is important or useful. Or maybe it's a captive audience where they don't have a choice and they're exposed to it.
So transmission obviously is crucial to integrity maintenance.
Oh yeah, all of these are related.
Okay.
So in the case of Christianity, we see children being exposed to it. That's a very important part of Christianity is the passing on of Christianity to children.
Right.
And
This whole notion
Sunday
of
school, that
the
sort of
promotion of
thing.
family values in Christianity, the idea of reproduce, marry, have big families, and to make more Christians.
Right,
And
right.
to sort of raise the children in the religion. Yeah.
Right, and it's getting ahead of us a little bit, but
okay.
in effect we have, in that situation, we have a whole host of mechanisms effectively creating more humans for the meme to infect. And it's sort of one of the sort of scarier consequences of what this view is that, it's just like, in a sense, the movie The Matrix. I know it's kind of popular sport these days
Yeah,
to interpret the Matrix, but here you have something that's feeding off of humans and in effect controlling humans to a large extent in order to facilitate its own survival. It's a different entity that has a survival instinct of sorts.
So we're talking now about an idea, a concept, that when it reaches a certain, I guess you could say, critical mass, it does seem to take on a life of its own.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
so it's no longer the people maintaining and controlling the idea, it's the idea maintaining and controlling the people.
Right. And I think that's
through culture.
That's one of the key insights here is that the meme is in charge for many people, or the meme has a subtle influence on so many people that you see its influence in large movements. Things like the abortion rights or abortion prohibition movement, the ban on cloning, family values. This notion that the United States is a Christian nation. These are movements that you see where you see the meme's influence on many people. So I have 2 more points as far as what makes a meme successful. One is the notion of infection, to get people to actually adopt it into their heads. With children, that's easy because the children really don't have defenses, and they don't say, well, that's BS, I don't believe that. They absorb culture. Children do that.
Especially from adults who are authority figures.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another part of that is how long does that infection last with a person? The longevity of it. How long does it stay around? Is it knocked out by other ideas and things? And Christianity is very good at doing that by saying, Christianity is the explanation for the universe, why you exist. That there's a God and there's an afterlife, and these sorts of things are very sort of seductive things, and they help. All of these ideas work together to help maintain its infection in a human.
Right. By the way, we do have callers on the line, but we want you guys to just hold, okay? Because we want to give Don his time to give his presentation. And then we'll open up the lines for your calls, all right? So just hang on, and we appreciate the calls, but please be patient. We'll get to you, all right? Thanks.
Finally, another thing that makes a meme successful is being able to influence the behavior of its host. And it's kind of like if you have a cold, you have a cold virus, and if the cold makes you sneeze, that helps the cold take hold in another host.
Maybe affect more people. Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the reason why we see colds and flus kind of run away, and in effect what we have is the cold virus affecting the behavior of its host. It's making the host sneeze, right? It's making the host have a runny nose so that the virus.
Making the host miss work, making the host do all sorts of things, yeah.
Well, actually, missing work is
a bad thing.
Cold medicines, if you're taking a cold medicine and you've suppressed some of the symptoms, then you're going to potentially infect more people. Anyway, we see that
medicines are a beneficial thing to the cold virus.
In a sense, yeah.
The cold virus wants you to go to work
Exactly.
and sneeze your head off.
Exactly.
You know, right in everybody's coffee.
Right. So by analogy, you know, we see successful memes like Christianity influencing the behavior of the hosts. We see Christians wanting to go and proselytize. They see people wanting to go have more children and make sure that they're raised in Christian families, and so on. And there's a lot of sort of the behavior modification going on. And of course, this is effectively a result of the meme wanting to propagate itself. It's an adaptation of the meme to influence the behavior of the host, and you see that with successful memes.
Okay.
So those are I think the kind of the main points we'd like to make about the meme and why it's successful, why Christianity is successful.
Okay. Can you give us we'll go ahead and we'll take our callers in a minute, but feel free, go ahead and maybe just give us like tie into a few more specifics, like how it is that Christianity, for example, resists criticism of, like, for example, there are dogmas associated with Christianity that you can look at and you can examine them and you can say, okay, this is clearly untrue and for this reason or that or the other. And yet, you know, people, you know, will maintain the belief system regardless of, you know, if you're able to present them with some sort of disconfirming evidence saying, look, here's a belief you've got and I can show you that it isn't true. And yet, you know, and yet the person is only too happy to just resist that new information. So how is it that a meme will, you know, manage to condition, you know, the believer, as it were, to just not to be resistant to any sort of, you know, critical examination of itself?
Okay. In Memetics, we talk about things that are hooks. They're mechanisms by which memes can influence the behavior or sort of control, to a limited extent, the behavior of the host. And Christianity has quite a number of them, and that's part of the reason why it's so successful, and part of the reason why reason is somewhat is an ineffective tool against Christianity. And one of the ways to look at this is if you just take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is an idea from psychology that we have needs at various levels. We have a need of physiological needs of you know, being fed and breathing and sleep, those sorts of things, all the way up to self-actualization. You can look at all of these different levels of Maslow's hierarchy and see how Christianity influences it. So for example, if we take a look at our physiological needs, we have a need to stay alive. That's something that was identified. Well, Christianity gives us an eternal life in heaven, right? We don't necessarily have proof of it, but if you believe that there is an afterlife, and you have a soul and such, and that you are effectively your soul, and that lives on in afterlife, you've effectively hooked into our survival instinct. Okay, so if you tell someone that they're no longer going to be a Christian, or that's a bad thing, you effectively have to deal with a person coming to grips with their own mortality. At a this is a very low level sort of thing. This is sort of below even our emotional level. This is our instinct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So less nasty hooks, if you will, are things like we have Christians, born-again Christians. They often have this sense of overwhelming joy and love and feeling you know, part of this culture, and that in effect is kind of giving Christians a freedom from pain or freedom from some of the nasty.
It's a feeling of being protected, right?
Yeah.
This notion of your heavenly Father looking out for you, always watching over you.
Right.
It's this need for, like, the you know, people, I guess, don't want to cut the umbilical. So the idea that you still have a parent all through your life who will take care of you, even after your own parents have died. And even at
an individual level, we have kind of almost a drug-like high created by through this feeling of being born again and such. And
you know, as you see, like if you see some of these televised revival meetings where, you know, some of the people in the crowd are just in the throes of, you know, ecstasy. They're just, you know, really. I mean, it's really affected them at a very core level.
Right. Yeah. And you know, from a skeptic's point of view, you wonder what's going on. But I believe that effect is real in that person, and they really are feeling very high in a sense.
Yeah.
And how can you argue with that, again, with reason, right?
Yeah.
Reason's an ineffective tool against that.
Sure.
So we got to figure out a way how to have those kind of things at the bagel shop then.
Right.
They're so good. Whee! Okay.
Okay.
What might be a couple more?
You know, those are sort of the more insidious ones. I think, you know, as you go up the hierarchy of needs, you know, we have a notion of feeling safe in our world. We have a notion of Christianity creating a safe society. You buy into this notion that if you believe in God and everybody else does, that we have a moral society.
But then you run into cognitive dissonance when you come across a situation like the 9/11 terror attacks, which, you know, and you
upended that whole notion, right?
I know, and you find, and it was amazing how after 9/11 you heard just believers scrambling for whatever way to fit that into the belief system they've already got in a way that would still allow God to exist for them, God, their protective Father, to exist for them,
right.
and yet reconcile it with this horrible, terrible tragedy, which, by the way, was put together and, you know, and executed by a bunch of guys who have their own idea of a Heavenly Father and have their own God belief,
right.
and were saying prayers all the while they were hijacking those planes. You know, this weird sort of cognitive dissonance really becomes a problem at that point. And I guess when you see Christians coming up with these, you know, crazy ideas, like I would read on the bulletin boards and in some Christian like newsletters and things, where, you know, like this one woman was talking about how she was reduced to describing to her child how, well, you know, God was holding up the buildings, going, go on there. That's why more people didn't die and people were able to get out, because God was like, oh, hurry, I can't hold it up much longer. Like an all-powerful universe-creating deity would be like struggling to hold up 2 skyscrapers. You know, it's just complete nonsense when you think of it with anything resembling reason.
Right.
And yet it is it is the meme like going into, you know, beep beep battle stations. We got to, you know, really.
Absolutely. How do you make sense of it? And I think one of the big after effects that we saw is people embracing religion. You know, the message was we didn't pray enough. We aren't close enough to God.
Falwell. Yeah.
Right.
America's not Christian enough. This is God lifting His shield of protection over us.
That's right.
Yeah.
But holding up the buildings.
Yeah. And so now you have the angry, the punishing parent. You know, so the protective parent is also a punishing parent when he feels like it.
Right.
And so, wow, that's scary. That's like definite. That's a very controlling mechanism, I could see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've just touched on a few of them. There's quite a few more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're about halfway through the show now, just about. So it's really a lot of interesting food for thought, and I'm sure that our callers now probably have some questions for you.
Before you jump into that, let me give a little plug. A lot of the ideas that are in this talk and in this presentation are from my website, which is www.christianitymeme.org.
Okay, yeah.
That's M-E-M-E is how it's spelled.
We've had that on. There we go. We got a title right there.
Oh, good deal.
So we'll just go ahead and leave that up while people talk to you.